Diamore Law Group believes personal injury is about public safety, not just a settlement check. Led by veteran trial attorney Tom Diamore, with over 30 years of experience holding negligent drivers, corporations, and unsafe institutions accountable across Oregon. And clients pay nothing unless they win. If you or someone you love has been seriously injured, call 503-222-6333 or visit diamorelaw.com to schedule a free consultation.
History comes to life in Titanic, the artifact exhibition, opening March 21st at OMSI. This immersive exhibit offers a rare opportunity for audiences of all ages to take a step back in time and take on the role of a passenger on the ship's first and final voyage. With more than 100 authentic artifacts recovered from the wreck site, visitors can explore life aboard the Titanic and the human stories behind one of history's most enduring tragedies. Tickets available at omsi.edu. Portland's first long-term city administrator has now been on the job for 2.5 months. Raymond Lee moved to Portland earlier this year after working in the farming community of Greeley, Colorado. Today on CityCast Portland, he's here answering our questions on some hot-button issues, from his support for the ICE facility to the mysterious appearance of an extra $100 million in housing money, to just how we're going to fund a renovation of the Trailblazers Stadium in the middle of a budget crunch. It's Tuesday, March 17th. I'm John Notarianni in for Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Raymond Lee, welcome to Portland. Super glad to have you here. You moved here from Greeley, Colorado, just in time to catch the winter. How does our winter line up compared to what you're used to in Colorado?
It's much a better winter here. Anytime you don't have to shovel snow, it's always good. I can deal with the rain. The snow, I'm a Texan that born and raised, so I'm used to rain. The snow always add a different element to it.
You're the first person to move to Oregon and be complimentary about the weather. That is not the response that we normally get.
The sunshine is a different story.
Yeah. It's coming, I promise.
Yeah.
We will have it for you in a couple months, if not sooner. Well, I have one very important question for you that I think is going to define whether you're going to fit in here, whether you're really going to stick and make it. I understand that you're a bit of a food guy. So far, you've had a minute. What's your favorite restaurant in Portland?
I'm not going to do it. I've had so many good places that I can't advertise as a public official and city official. Can't advertise one business over the other. But I will say this. I've had some of the best seafood that I've had in a very long time in Portland. And I could say the food here has been a huge plus for me as a transition. I consider myself a foodie. So I love to eat, probably sometimes more than I should, because every time I see my family, they tell me, hey, man, it might be time for you to hit the gym again. So I might be enjoying the food a little too much. But I've been to a ton of good places: pizza, seafood, Asian cuisine, steaks. All of it, honestly, has been great and phenomenal. You can really tell that we have a lot of places that are going farm to table food, and it's been phenomenal.
All right. I'm going to state for the record that our city administrator has declined answering specifically. You've got a long future in politics here, Mr. Lee. Well, I want to start off with a question that I imagine you're expecting about the ICE facility here in Portland. The Portland Mercury got a recording of you telling city staff during an internal meeting that you support keeping the ICE facility open in South Portland. Explain your thinking there. Why do you think it's important for us to keep this ICE facility in the city?
When you look through the history of time and when you look at what has limited minorities in this country, it's always been the access to services. Me being a minority of myself, I have experienced that myself in time, or have people that are associated with me have experienced not having the access to services. And we know this facility does provide an ability for people to work themselves through the immigration process. The city is not condoning by any means the efforts and the tactics that have been used and exhibited by ICE agents. That's one component of this operation. The other component is a component that people have used to work their way through their citizenship process, their interviews. And if that facility is closed at its current existence without any other option, we're telling others, residents, Portlanders, that they have to go to a whole nother state to get their immigration process. And we know that limits their ability to actually be able to follow through and be able to do that.
But I think a lot of Portlanders would say, I mean, a lot of people are very, very upset about this facility being in our city. I mean, we've seen huge protests ongoing for many, many months. And, I would say the service that facility has the most notoriety of providing is detention. Are you saying that detention is the service that is important?
It's not the detention aspect of it. I'm talking about people to be able to conduct the interviews and go through the process of gaining their citizenship. That's the portion that I want to be able to see, that we have that ability to maintain that access to that component of it. This is a quasi-judicial matter as well that our city council will be voting on as it relates to the land use and the ability of that facility to stay open. One aspect of the conversation that I will be focused on, either way that the council goes on that vote, how do we maintain access to people who still need to work through the process of citizenship and is looking to be able to work through that process? How do they still have that access? And that's the main thing that I'm focused on.
Yeah, well, speaking of the land use process, I mean, there are a number of things sort of going on simultaneously with this facility. One of them is that the property owner was in violation of allowing detainees to be held for more than 12 hours. What's happening there? Has the owner gotten into compliance?
The owner has put in an appeal process. So they're waiting on an administrative hearing to take place for that process. To date, that has not been scheduled yet. So they're working themselves through that process before a determination will be made.
So that is ongoing. We will wait and see.
And John, one thing I would like to share too, and keep in mind, as we talk about the different aspects of this situation, one, the access of people being able to work through the process for their immigration status. The two is the gas ammunitions that we've been seeing go through that facility, and that facility has been using. And that is something that I've signed administrative policy to ban that and fine that, to stop that practice from happening in neighborhoods. These things are affecting Portlanders as well. This is affecting communities. We're seeing where children have been gassed as well. And that's something we don't stand for at all, and we will fight against.
Yeah, we saw that. I believe we still have temporary regulations in place. These aren't the permanent rules. Those went into effect at the end of last month. But this has been something that has been a very hot button issue, again, for many, many months. Why did it take so long just to even get those temporary regulations in place?
Anytime you introduce new policy into a government, the government, if we don't have the mechanisms to enforce it, to evaluate it, we have to develop those things. And this has been new. And I can't speak to all the work that was happening before I got here, because I did get here in the last 2 months. But there is a lot of due diligence that has to go into that type of work, legal work that can ensure if we are defensible if someone tries to challenge this ordinance, and administrative work as it relates to how do we implement this, how do we operate with this ordinance in place, and how do we evaluate the effectiveness of this ordinance. So when you're looking at all these different moving pieces happening in a very volatile situation, we just want to make sure we're making the right steps at the right time, that we have stuff that is defensible and things that we can actually implement and operate at the same time.
All right. Well, Mr. Lee, I want to take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about the budget.
If you're looking for an excuse to visit the Oregon coast, Newport has several new places to stay, and each one is offering something a little bit different, like the Allred Hotel, which makes coastal travel really easy. Just bring the family and the pup, and you can enjoy their pool, sauna, and on-site restaurant. And of course, the beach is just a few steps away. If you're looking for something a little bit quieter, maybe check out Hotel Sylvia. Think oceanfront views and shelves full of books in a setting that feels just like an old, eclectic library. And then there's the Louie. It's a boutique hotel that adds a little bit of character to your stay with lo-fi jazz that greets you at the door. And your room comes equipped with your own turntable and record collection. Their private saunas and hot tubs invite real rest. And it's all just steps away from the historic Nye Beach Arts District. Explore these Newport stays and plan your next getaway at discovernewport.com/citycast. We're living in a moment where communicating big ideas is harder than ever. Trust is fragile, real dialogue is difficult, and staying silent, that can be dangerous. That's why the Association of Science Communicators is bringing Science Talk 2026 to Portland's Tiffany Center. This year marks the conference's 10-year anniversary with the theme Wayfinding, Charting a Decade of Dialogue. Science Talk brings together scientists, journalists, educators, and curious members of the public to wrestle with some of the big questions facing science communication today. Stuff like, how do you counter conspiracy theories? How do you rebuild public trust? And how do you tell stories about science in ways that actually reach people? From building bridges with rural communities to high-stakes conversations, this conference is where the field of science communication sharpens its thinking for the decade ahead. You can join in person in Portland or attend online from anywhere. Go to sciencetalk.org to learn more. Well, we've got another budget scandal on our hands here in Portland. The Housing Bureau has an extra $100 million. Where did this money come from? What is happening here?
You know, I've probably answered this question a lot over the past month. And, you know, when you look at the situation as a whole, and I give credit to the employees that we have within our organization that try to track these funds, try to ensure that these funds are being used in an appropriate manner. I think this was a relic of our past. I think it was a relic of the commissioner-based form of government where we were very siloed as an organization and not having a central hub that understood or even knew about every aspect of the fundings that are happening within the bureaus who had their own operations from a finance, HR, IT standpoint. And this is something that we've been working through the transition period to really consolidate these things into a centralized alignment for our organization so we'll have a better hand of where these funds are. And keep in mind, this is not a conversation where we're saying fraud, waste, or abuse was happening. Our housing department brought this situation to us as we were going through our budget conversation and say, hey, we do have these funds sitting within these accounts. This is something that our council was not aware of, and this is the reason why we've been so transparent with making them aware of it so they can be transparent with their constituents and the residents of this great city to let them be aware of the funds that we have and how do we best put those funds to use. You know, those funds were set aside for looking at some bigger projects and really funding some bigger initiatives, but those funds had not been designated earmarked for what projects they would be going towards. So when I look at this process as a whole, I see this as a positive. I see this, citizens spoke that they wanted to see a change and within how government was operating. And a part of this change highlighted some of the things that were happening in the past. And we've had dedicated employees that have really been working with us to try to see how do we better communicate? How are we more transparent with what's happening with the operation of those dollars? And how are we putting those dollars to use today to help people that are in need today?
Sure. I mean, I understand that in a certain sense, some of these were kind of set aside for a rainy day fund. And like, we are in a rainy day in terms of the budget, like literally and figuratively. Our budget issue in this city is really, really tough right now. And something that I find could be really challenging in this is just the question of trust. because, we have a new city council that has expanded. We also have a mayor and you as the city administrator. And we have sort of seen tension already over the last year in between the interests of like what the mayor and like what the sort of central bureaucratic administration of the city wants and what council does. So I'm wondering how you're thinking about that trust between these two arms of local government and how you're going to sort of fill the role of trying to keep both sides talking and keep the conversation going.
I really see this role as the convener and ensuring that I'm creating the space and the environment for these conversations to take place of how do we govern better? How do we communicate better? How do we deliver services better to the people of this city? And this is always a work in progress. I think we made a huge step forward in this conversation this past weekend and having a work session to really outline what are the strategic priorities of our city council and what are going to be those guiding principles that will help shape the direction that we'll be heading as a city. And I will take my hat off to the city council. They did a phenomenal job within that conversation and really giving clear direction of those key things that they want to focus on as a collective body. And hopefully the council will be taking it under consideration of how we move this information forward as a framework for us to really set how our budget will be used to fund the things that we're saying are priority to our city, but also how do we integrate? And when we talk about integrate, we're talking about integrating not only the council's priorities, but the mayor's vision, the vision that he has for this city and moving this city forward. All these things work together to provide us a sense of direction. And what I've always shared with my team and the administrative arm of this organization, and even our elected body, we're not going to agree on everything. That's the great thing about democracy.
That's clear. Yep. We know that well in Portland.
But what we can have is alignment. Alignment on the direction that we want to head as a city and how we get there. Alignment on a commitment to excellence as an organization, something that we're not striving for perfection, but we're always striving to how do we grow and get better as an organization.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. And I imagine that sometimes you sort of feel like the guy who has two different people arguing in your ears and having to be the person to make that alignment and try and get both sides to get along. But the other part of this, I think, is still this question of these unspent funds, right, that we found. And I did notice that, like, okay, we heard about this first pocket of money that was discovered in the Housing Bureau. And like in subsequent weeks, there was more and more disclosures of like, oh, there's some money like that the arts tax has been sitting on that hasn't been spent. Like we've sort of seen a recurring number of these coming out, and that there's been an internal audit trying to figure out if any other departments have these bags of money that we didn't know were sitting there. How is that going? Like, have you found any more unspent funds? And do you think that you've found it all, or is it possible that there's still more out there that we just haven't uncovered yet?
No, we're still evaluating that. We're still evaluating the housing situation, and we will develop a systematic process to look at all the bureaus. And a lot of this, what you're seeing, are happening in restricted funds. The real problem that we have as an organization is having a shortfall within our general fund. Even the housing funds, a lot of those are restricted funds, not for operating police, fire, our parks and recreation. And that's what we're seeing as a huge issue as it relates to moving forward with a stable organization that can provide services moving forward. There's those core services of our organization.
Yeah. Well, I do want to also get to the budget shortfall, but I kind of want to get to something else first, which is the Moda Center. Oh boy, what's going on there? But first, let's take another quick break. All right, the Moda Center. Oh, the Moda Center. So before I get there, part of your background, you led the revitalization of the downtown urban core in Greeley, Colorado. So like you've been around this stuff before. And I'm wondering, with your experience, like coming into Portland, what do you see that we've been doing right? And where have we been getting tripped up? Like what has Portland done wrong, in your opinion?
I think Portland has done great in developing great communities, neighborhoods.
Mhm.
One thing that I've learned about Portlanders is they love their neighborhoods and they want people to come visit their neighborhoods. They
Yeah.
want people to come experience the entertainment, the food, just being able to get out and see one another and enjoy each other over a cup of coffee at the local coffee shops. That has been phenomenal for
Yeah.
Portland, and it's something that is very unique to Portland. But that has been also something that has hindered the growth and the renaissance of downtown.
Mm.
Downtown is not seen as a neighborhood for a lot of Portlanders. And I think some of the success that we've seen in our neighborhoods has been to the detriment of the downtown. Because if I have everything that I need in my neighborhood, why do I need to go downtown? So I think one of the things that we're going to have to work on and get better at as an organization is how do we market and sell downtown as a neighborhood? How do we get more density and create more density of residential communities in our downtown core neighborhood where people feel like they can truly live, work, and play and have a sense of belonging in the downtown area? I think
Yeah.
that's a huge thing that we have to work on as an organization and how we market, how do we sell, but how we develop that downtown and that own identity.
Mr. Lee, I'm going to book you right now to come back and talk about that exclusively because there is an entire conversation I would love to have about that. But I do want to put a pin in that idea and bring it back to this question of the Moda Center,
Mhm.
because to catch people up, there is a new owner of the Portland Trailblazers and the
Yes.
Wings. One of the things that is happening is there needs to be a huge amount of public investment in renovating the Moda Center to make this deal stick. The state just passed about $365 million in bonds to make it happen. The city's going to be on the hook for a lot too. It looks like, the recent reporting from OPB is $120 million up
Mhm.
front and, up to nearly $300 million over 20 years. And for a city that is having a hard time with the budget, that's a ton of money. There's been the idea of using climate funds to make this happen from like the Portland Clean Energy Fund. Are you on board with that? Like, where are we going to get the money?
That's something that we're evaluating today. What we will be providing our city council, because ultimately the city council will have to make the decision, is
Hmm.
options of where we can pull that money. PSEF dollars were one of the options that we have listed on our list of funds that could be an option for the city council or for the PSEF board because it's going to need approval at several levels if PSEF dollars are used for the renovations of the Moda Center. We are looking at this as a catalyst development.
Hmm.
We see Moda as a catalyst for redevelopment, not only for the Moda Center, but for that whole area within our community. That's what we're banking on. We're banking on this being more than just a thing for the Blazers. What we're seeing and what we're hearing from our entertainment and promoters throughout our city and throughout this region and state is right now we've been a flyover. We've
Yeah.
been a flyover because the condition of our facility, which we own today, the city owns the
Yeah.
Moda Center.
And I think it's clear. I think that we all know, it's been made very clear to us that if we don't renovate this building, the future of the Trailblazers in Portland is very questionable. And that is not something that I think we want to consider. But like, okay, so these PSEF funds, there's been a lot of people, in the community and on city council that have been very vocal about like
Mhm.
wanting to make sure that this money goes to its intended original purpose. And like a renovation of the Moda Center, that's a bit of a stretch to like really make that happen. So if this doesn't come through, like if this deal doesn't come together, if city council decides it's not in the city's best interest to do that, like what's plan B? What would the next source of funding be?
That's what we're currently evaluating now to provide
Yeah.
council what those potential options could be. You may have to look at additional revenue or creating new revenue streams to be able to fund something of this sort. But that's something we'll have to go into conversations with the city council to really lay out what those options are. And that's something that we're currently evaluating now so we can prepare different financial models for the city council to take under
Mhm.
consideration.
Are you saying the T word might be a new tax?
I don't know if it'll necessarily be a new tax. It could be
Mm.
fees. It could be different things that we look at as it relates to options for funding the renovations for this facility.
Mhm,
And keep
mhm.
in mind too, John, we have to do this one way or another, with the Blazers or without the Blazers, with
Sure,
this
yeah.
being a city asset. we're going to have to do this. But it's more palatable to be able to do this when you have an anchor tenant in your facility to be able to move something forward that's generating revenue to help for these type of developments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are the budget guy. And like, I'm sure that you spend a lot of time looking at numbers and sort of planning things out. And even with all this exciting stuff on the horizon, as we've said, the city is having had a tough budget year last year. We're going to have another tough budget year this year. The city might be looking at some cuts. And the new budget is coming around in like what, June, July, probably.
Yes.
You have, and if I'm correct, you write the first draft of that, right? Like you write a draft, then it goes to the mayor, then it goes to council. But like you got your hands in this early, right?
Yes, I do.
So I guess I'm wondering, like, what should the public expect to see this year, particularly in terms of cuts? Like, if we need to cut, where are you looking?
That's the question that we have today. And we'll be having some budget meetings over the weekend to really look at where we will potentially be making these cuts. The general fund, which is the home of a lot of our core services as a city, from police, fire, parks, some of our internal services, core services as a city, we'll be looking at all of these things, to see what the potential options are for us to produce a balanced budget. Ultimately, the mayor will be making some tough decisions in his proposed budget to council, and council at that point in time will even have to make some even tougher decisions regarding the budget that they will adopt. A lot of due diligence is going into what are the core services and what are the priorities of this city, and how do we still provide those core services and address the priorities that the city council has outlined of things that they want to focus on. Those are the key things that we're going to be really deliberating as we go through trying to prepare a budget that the mayor will be ultimately proposing to the city council for adoption. So, we're still baking the cake. We're still pulling the ingredients together to see what this cake will be at the end of the day. And we haven't gotten to a point yet to truly say what services will potentially be up for reductions or a change in business model of how we deliver those services moving forward. But I will commit to this. There's a lot of strategic conversations happening about how we move forward as an organization. But the biggest thing that we're trying to address as an organization is not only how do we make reductions, but how do we recover? How do we pull ourselves out of this crisis management situation that we seem to be in, like you spoke of earlier, John, that we're in every single year? And we have challenged our CFO to pull together a 5-year plan that pulls us out of the condition that we're in today into greener pastures, so where we can be in a situation where this is not the conversation every single year for our organization and our employees and our residents of our community have to go through this conversation wondering what services will be provided. Employees wondering, will I be employed next year? We as an organization will get better as the economic condition of the community changes. But we want to make sure that we're strategic about how do we make reductions now that makes it easier for us to recover as the economic condition changes and improves for our city.
Wow, you have clearly a lot of work ahead of you to sort all of this out. But thank you for joining us here in Portland. Thanks for being along for the ride. And thanks for making the time to talk with us, Mr. Lee. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
And I will say, in terms of inviting people to the neighborhood, hey, man, come up to my neighborhood. Take you out to dinner, Cafe Ollie, super great.
Yes.
Sunrise, right down the street from my house. We've got some good options for you here in the Humboldt neighborhood as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to working with the community and ensuring that they're getting everything that they deserve out of their government.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for us today here on CityCast Portland, but thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend or leave us a rating or a review? And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast neighbor. Just visit membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with much more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.